A billionaire was enjoying Alfredo pasta until a waitress said, "You don't remember me, do you?" What if the person who changed your life forever was standing right in front of you, but you couldn't remember their face? 42-year-old Jonathan Mitchell sat in the corner booth of Romano's Italian Bistro, twirling Alfredo pasta around his sterling silver fork. The soft jazz music and warm lighting created the perfect atmosphere for his usual Tuesday evening routine. As one of the country's wealthiest tech entrepreneurs, Jonathan could afford any restaurant in the city, yet he always returned to this modest, family-owned place. Something about it felt familiar, though he couldn't quite place why. The waitress approached his table with a gentle smile, her name tag reading Clara. She had kind eyes and graying hair pulled back in a neat ponytail. As she refilled his water glass, her hand trembled slightly. "Excuse me, sir," she said softly, her voice carrying a weight of years and memories. "You don't remember me, do you?" Jonathan looked up from his pasta, fork suspended in midair. "Where are you watching from tonight?" Jonathan studied Clara's face carefully, searching his memory for any trace of recognition. Her warm brown eyes seemed familiar, but he couldn't connect them to anyone from his current circle of business associates and society friends. She stood patiently beside his table, her hands clasped behind her back, waiting for an answer that didn't come. "I'm sorry," he said finally, setting down his fork. "Have we met before? You do seem familiar, but I can't quite place where." Clara's smile faltered just slightly, though she tried to hide her disappointment. She'd worked at Romano's for 15 years, watching countless customers come and go, but this man had been special once. "It's all right," she replied gently. "It was a long time ago. Enjoy your meal, sir." As she turned to leave, something in her voice made Jonathan pause. There was a sadness there, mixed with what sounded like fond remembrance. He'd built his fortune by paying attention to details, reading people's expressions during crucial business negotiations. Clara wasn't just another waitress making polite conversation. "Wait," he called softly. "Please sit for a moment. I have a feeling this is important." Clara glanced around the nearly empty restaurant. Her shift was almost over, and her manager was in the back office. She slid into the booth across from Jonathan, her weathered hands smoothing her apron nervously. "Do you remember the winter of 2008? She asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Jonathan's brow furrowed. That had been one of the darkest periods of his life. He'd just lost his job at the software company, his apartment was being foreclosed on, and he'd been living out of his beat-up Honda Civic. He'd spent most of that winter in coffee shops and diners, nursing single cups of coffee for hours while searching for work on his laptop. "That was a difficult time," he admitted, his voice growing quieter. Clara nodded, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. "You used to come in here every night around closing time. You'd order the cheapest thing on the menu and make it last for hours." Jonathan felt a chill run down his spine. Someone had shown him kindness during those desperate months, but the memories felt hazy and distant. Clara's voice grew stronger as the memories flooded back. "You always sat at this exact booth, working on your laptop until we had to close. I could see you counting your change, trying to make every dollar stretch. Some nights you'd order just coffee and crackers." Jonathan's chest tightened. He remembered those nights clearly now, the embarrassment of being hungry but unable to afford a real meal, the fear that his dreams of starting his own company would never materialize. "I remember being hungry," he whispered, his successful facade cracking slightly. "I was trying to get investors for my app idea, but everyone said I was too young, too inexperienced." Clara reached across the table and gently touched his hand. Her fingers were work-worn but warm. "Every night I'd bring you extra breadsticks and soup, telling you the kitchen had made too much," she continued. "But the truth was I'd been paying for your meals myself. You looked so thin, so defeated. My husband had just passed away, and seeing you reminded me of my own son. I couldn't stand watching someone so young give up on their dreams." The words hit Jonathan like a physical blow. He pulled his hand back, staring at Clara with growing recognition and horror. You paid for my food? For weeks." His voice cracked with emotion. "I thought the kitchen was just being wasteful." "I never realized." Clara smiled sadly. "I didn't want you to know. You had your pride, and I respected that. But I also had a mother's heart, and I couldn't watch you starve while chasing your dreams. My late husband used to say that sometimes angels don't have wings. They just have kind hearts and the courage to act. Jonathan felt shame wash over him like a tide. Here was the woman who'd quite literally kept him alive during his darkest hour, and he'd completely forgotten her face, her name, her sacrifice. His successful company, his billions of dollars, his penthouse apartment, none of it would have existed without Clara's quiet acts of mercy. "I built my entire empire on your kindness," he said, his voice barely audible, "and I forgot you completely." If this moment touches your heart, please give the video a thumbs up. Clara squeezed his hand gently. "You weren't supposed to remember, honey. You were supposed to succeed. And look at you now. You did exactly what I hoped you would do." But Jonathan couldn't share her joy. How could he celebrate success built on forgotten kindness? Jonathan pushed his plate away, his appetite completely gone. The Alfredo pasta that had seemed so appetizing moments before now felt like ash in his mouth. "How can you be proud of me?" he asked, his voice thick with emotion. "I became exactly the kind of person I used to despise. Wealthy, disconnected, forgetting the people who helped me climb out of poverty." Clara studied his face with the same maternal compassion she'd shown 15 years ago. "What kind of person do you think you became?" she asked gently. Jonathan gestured around the expensive restaurant, then at his tailored suit and platinum watch. Someone who eats $40 pasta dishes and doesn't recognize the woman who saved his life. Someone who's so removed from real struggle that I've forgotten what hunger feels like. The words poured out of him like a confession. He told Clara about the guilt he carried, how success had gradually insulated him from the very experiences that had shaped his character. He described board meetings where millions of dollars were discussed like pocket change, charity galas where wealthy people wrote checks to ease their consciences rather than actually connecting with those in need. "I used to promise myself I'd never forget where I came from," he said, his hands trembling slightly. "But somewhere between my first million and my first billion, I lost sight of the faces that made it possible. I lost sight of you." Clara listened without judgment, occasionally nodding or offering a soft of understanding. "Can I tell you something?" she said when he finished. "I've been watching you come here every Tuesday for 3 years. At first, I thought maybe you'd remember eventually. But then I realized something more important. You chose to keep coming back to this little neighborhood restaurant when you could eat anywhere in the world. Why do you think that is?" Jonathan considered her question seriously. I'm not sure. It just feels right here. Comfortable. Like home." Clara's eyes sparkled with gentle wisdom. "Your heart remembered, even when your mind didn't. You've been searching for this feeling of belonging, of connection to something real and authentic." She leaned forward conspiratorially. "And honey, you tip our servers more than some people make in a week. You're not as disconnected as you think. Have you ever faced something like this in your own life? Let us know in the comments." Jonathan felt something shift inside his chest, a crack in the wall of shame he'd built around his success. "There's something else," Clara said softly, reaching into her apron pocket. She pulled out a worn piece of paper, yellowed with age. "You left this behind one night in 2009, just before you disappeared. I kept it, hoping I'd see you again someday." She unfolded the paper carefully, revealing a handwritten note in Jonathan's younger, less refined handwriting. Jonathan's breath caught as he read his own words from 15 years ago. "To the angel in Romano's kitchen, I don't know your name, but your kindness has kept my dreams alive when I wanted to give up. Someday, when I'm successful, I'll find a way to pay forward what you've given me. I promise I'll never forget that someone believed in me when I couldn't believe in myself. Forever grateful, Jonathan." Tears rolled down his cheeks as he remembered writing those words on his last night in the restaurant before his app finally got funded. "I meant every word," he whispered. I didn't know how to find you. I came back looking for you a few months later, but there was a different waitress. I assumed you'd moved on." Clara smiled through her own tears. "I took some time off to grieve my husband. By the time I came back, you were probably already building your company." She folded the note carefully and handed it to him. "But you did keep your promise, honey. Maybe not the way you originally planned, but you've been paying it forward all along." She told him about the scholarship fund his company had quietly established for underprivileged students studying computer science. She knew about the food banks his corporation supported, the homeless shelters that received anonymous donations traced back to his personal accounts. "You think you forgot?" she said gently, "but your heart has been remembering all along. You just never connected the dots back to that hungry young man in this booth." Jonathan stared at the note, understanding flooding through him like warm sunlight. "You're not angry that I forgot you?" he asked. Clara shook her head, reaching across to squeeze his hand again. "Oh, honey, I wasn't helping you so you'd remember me forever. I was helping you because it was right. But seeing the man you've become, that's worth more than any thank you note ever could be." If you've been enjoying this story, subscribe to our channel for more heartwarming tales. Jonathan felt 15 years of guilt beginning to dissolve, replaced by something much more powerful. Jonathan carefully folded the note and placed it in his wallet, right next to a photo of his late parents. "Clara," he said softly, "would you let me do something?" She tilted her head curiously, unsure what he might ask. "I'd like to establish a fund in your name, the Clara Henderson Memorial Scholarship for students facing financial hardship. Not because I owe you anything, but because your example taught me that true wealth isn't measured in bank accounts. It's measured in the lives we touch." Clara's hand flew to her heart, and fresh tears spilled down her cheeks. "Oh, honey, that's not necessary. I didn't tell you this story to get anything from you." Jonathan shook his head firmly. "I know you didn't. That's exactly why you deserve to have your kindness remembered and multiplied. How many other hungry dreamers are sitting in restaurants right now, counting change and hoping for someone to believe in them?" As Clara wiped her eyes with her apron, Jonathan continued, "But there's something else I want even more than your permission for the scholarship." He paused, vulnerability clear in his voice. "I want to earn back the right to call you a friend, not as a billionaire trying to ease his guilt, but as the grateful man who never forgot the warmth of this place, even when he forgot the face that created it." Clara stood up slowly and moved around the table. Without hesitation, she wrapped Jonathan in a motherly hug that transported him instantly back to those cold winter nights when kindness had been the only thing standing between him and despair. "You never lost that right," she whispered. "You just needed to remember you were worthy of it." They talked for another hour as the restaurant emptied completely. Jonathan learned that Clara had 3 grandchildren, that she still made her late husband's famous marinara sauce recipe on Sundays, and that she'd been secretly proud every time she saw his company's name in the news. Clara discovered that Jonathan had never married because he'd been too afraid that anyone who got close to him was only interested in his money, and that he still kept a beat-up laptop from his homeless days as a reminder of where he came from. As they prepared to leave, Jonathan handed Clara his business card, not the CEO version, but a simple white card with just his name and personal phone number. "Tuesday dinners?" he asked hopefully. "I'd like to hear more stories about your husband and your grandchildren. And maybe you could teach me how to notice the people around me the way you noticed me." Clara tucked the card into her apron pocket with a radiant smile. "It's a date, honey. But next Tuesday, you're eating in the kitchen with me. I want to make sure you're getting enough vegetables." As they walked into the cool evening air together, Jonathan realized he'd found something more valuable than any business deal or investment opportunity. He'd found his way back to the person he was meant to be, not despite his success, but because of the reminder that success without memory, gratitude without connection, and wealth without heart are just empty achievements waiting to be forgotten. Some angels, he reflected, do have wings after all. They just wear aprons and serve them with extra breadsticks. If you enjoyed this story, please remember to like, leave a comment with your thoughts, and subscribe for more heartwarming tales. Thank you for joining Jonathan and Clara on this journey of rediscovered connection and the enduring power of forgotten kindness.